DJI is cooked. In the United States, anyway. And if you're one of those people who says, we've been talking about a DJI ban for a long time now and they're still around, I'll believe it when I see it, I'm here to tell you why this time is different. And one possible way that DJI might already be trying to get around it. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. There's a lot of different shapes that a DJI ban can take. We've seen ploys in the past to do things like add tariffs specifically to DJI products, to pass laws to make entities that buy DJI have to pay into some kind of a fund. There have been lots of different ways that various DJI bans have shaped up. And you would be correct if you said that none of those bans has ever really panned out. Well, none of the bans that actually apply to the public. It's been years now since, federal government agencies, federal employees have been prohibited from using DJI. And we've also seen some regional, state, etc. entities pass DJI bans. But the public has always been able to buy and use DJI products. But this ban is different because all of those other ones were like, hey guys, we just want you to know that there's a bill that someone has proposed that they're trying to get passed, and if it were to pass, it would be a bad thing. But as far as I can remember, none of those bills ever actually passed. And your skepticism of, I'll believe it when I see it, would be well-founded. But the difference is, this one already passed, and it passed all the way back in December of 2024. The bill in question is the fiscal year 2025 National Defense Authorization Act. And in case you don't know, the NDAA is basically a law that is passed every year that lets the military continue to operate. And it is a common technique for legislators to try to sort of like attach things to the NDAA because not passing the NDAA is kind of a big deal politically. So they try to like slide things in. Now I'll put a link to this bill in the video description, but basically you're looking for page 138, this subsection here, which I'll summarize for you. If a national security agency does not perform an audit of DJI and conclude that DJI is not a threat to national security, then DJI will be added to the covered entities list. What is the covered entities list? The covered entities list is a list of companies that the US government thinks are like a threat to national security. They're typically Chinese companies or other hostile nations. And when you're on the covered entities list, one of the effects is that you cannot get FCC licenses for your gear. And since basically all DJI equipment has Wi-Fi and other radios in it that needs an FCC license, that would basically prevent the importation and sale of future DJI products. Theoretically, products that already had an FCC license would continue to be allowed to be sold, although put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later. The way that they crafted this bill was really clever, and in my opinion, was designed from the start to ensure that DJI would get banned. And I've been saying basically ever since I learned about this, that the fix was in and the outcome was inevitable. All of the potential national security agencies who could make this determination, number one, why would they spend a huge amount of time and money and resources performing the audit? And then if they did perform the audit, why would they put their reputation on the line to say DJI is not a threat to national security? We concluded it. Can you imagine the outrage from the public if the FBI or the NSA said, well, we've looked at it and they're safe? Nobody's going to do that. They're all just going to put their heads down, wait for the clock to run out, and DJI will get banned. And that's what I've been saying will happen from the beginning. And that is definitely what's going to happen because we see that it gets even worse today. Just recently, the FCC voted to give itself the power to retroactively remove the licenses for DJI devices that had already been approved. So now the situation you've been hearing about, which is, well, we can't import any more DJI devices, but at least we can still keep legally using the stuff we already have. Why would they have given themselves this power if they didn't intend to do it? The intent is clear. The federal government, no one is going to perform this audit. On December, 24th, I think it's the day before Christmas, DJI will go on the entities list. And then presumably, immediately after that, the FCC will pull the certificates for all of their existing stuff, and it will be illegal to use DJI equipment in the United States, and no new equipment will be imported. What does this mean for you? What does this mean for you? Your existing DJI stuff will not suddenly stop working. For that to happen, well, number one, DJI would have to comply. DJI would have to participate right? They would have to somehow brick your stuff and convince you that you needed to connect to the internet to let them brick it. And especially for FPV pilots, like your air unit never needs to touch the internet ever again. So even if DJI were to decide to do that, FPV pilots would probably be fine. But you might have to not update the firmware on your stuff ever again. But I don't think DJI is ever going to do that, because DJI's best interests seem to lie in keeping the public on their side. And if they do that, it'll just piss the public off, and then the public and the politicians will hate them. And right now, the public likes DJI, well, to some degree. The people who use it do, and the politicians don't, so the public is mad at the politicians. I think DJI would want to keep that status quo. So there's no reason to believe that your DJI gear will stop working. There's no reason to believe that you won't be unable to get firmware updates or other things. You will not be able to get support from DJI. We've already seen cases where people who mailed their drones off for DJI refresh, their drones were not able to get back in the country, because even though this was not a new purchase, even though this was a licensed product that should have been allowed to be imported, Customs was just like, nope, we're not letting it in. And Customs stopped. And then DJI stopped selling DJI Refresh into the United States because they weren't able to service the drone. So basically, your DJI equipment currently exists and is usable. And even if they pull the FCC certificates, it will continue to be usable, although it won't be legal for you to use it. Somebody asked on my live stream whether if they pull the FCC certificates, would it still be usable if you had a ham license? And I'm not so sure about that. My gut tells me that there's some other reason why they would not be legal to use under a Part 97 ham license, but I'm not actually sure about that. If you know the answer, put it down in the comments. The other small glimmer of hope, perhaps, is I think it is more likely that FPV-related products like the DJI Air unit will be able to get in. And things like DJI cameras, the DJI Osmo, the DJI drones like the Mavic and so forth, that those will probably not be able to be imported, at least not through official means. Will there be a gray market or a black market? Sure, somebody's going to go to Canada or go to Mexico, buy a drone and bring it in. And even if there were some region locking on the activation, you could just use a VPN to get around that. If you are able to get DJI drones, it seems like the price will go way up. And it seems like there's going to be potentially a lot more complexity with getting even stuff like DJI Air units. The thing I think is most likely to be easily imported will be bind and fly drones with DJI in them, if you wanted to buy such a thing. Those, because that's a flywoo drone. Customs, what Customs know about that there's a DJI Air unit in it. Seems like those will sneak through. We've already seen it be increasingly difficult to get O4 Air units, and I don't really know the reason why. Just recently, there were a batch of O4s that showed up at FPV retailers like Get FPV, Race Day Quads, Rotor Riot, and others, and they sold out in like 20 minutes. Every single one of them just completely sold out. Maybe that process will continue and people will still be able to get O4s, but I certainly, if I was a DJI customer right now, I would be like, I'm not saying sell all your DJI gear and jump ship, because frankly, it will only become more valuable in the future as it becomes harder to get. But if I were starting from scratch, I probably would not buy DJI right now because of uncertainty about how hard or easy it will be to actually get that stuff going forward. So, what should you get? I don't know. Analog, walk snail, or HD0 are kind of your choices. But if you're in the United States, it feels like DJI is cooked. Guys, DJI is cooked.